Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. What is happening? What is going on over there?
I thought I would dress the way I feel.
Why am I not there?
Right?
What is happening?
You want to explain to our non-visual viewers what is before you?
Sean Patrick has just come on screen in a Hawaiian top with a cowboy wicker sombrero of sorts
It's a beach
and
hat. It's an East Coast beach hat. Yeah.
East Coast, okay, beach hat and headphone. He looks like he's DJing at a party in Cabo,
At a
essentially.
luau.
Yeah, with massive headphones and your microphone.
This is a tribute to today, our final episode of the season.
I have to take a photo of this for Instagram quickly. Wow.
Okay.
Our listeners are going to love to see that picture later today. Happy Friday to you there.
Friday. It's a beautiful day.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
Were you just at the pool? Is that why you look like this? Were you just at the pool?
No, but as soon as we're done, my pool is right there, and I'm running right into it. All 84 degrees of it.
You're going to run right into your pool? Oh my gosh.
No.
Can I come over? What am I doing over here?
I don't know. And you're busy. You have to move things, and you're booked, and
I'm being responsible today. I'm working a normal day.
that's fine. It's up to you, Lindsay, right? That's up to you.
Isn't it?
And that's what today is all about.
I feel like we should be having margaritas.
Yeah, I know. I did think I needed like a drink with a straw.
With an umbrella?
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Poolside.
That would be
next
nice.
on the to-do list, build a wet bar for the pool.
A tiki bar.
I did look tiki. Don't I look tiki?
You look very tiki.
Thank you.
Well, the last recording of season 2.
It has been quite a season.
Hasn't it? What kind of jimbly jambly garbage are we going to talk about today?
The jimbly jambly garbage. We're going to get right into it. First of all, we're going to talk about what we're going to do this summer, right? Just top level.
You're looking at it.
Yeah.
You're looking at it. I'm literally looking at it. I'm looking at it.
People, she's looking at me in my Hawaiian shirt. Yeah. I'm looking forward to what they'll say, unplugging, disconnecting. Not doing much, but definitely not worried about my summer. I think that's something as freelancers tend to do when things kind of get a bit slow. I find June, July can kind of be like, okay, people take vacation. I know everything's been different over the last few years, but it's definitely a trend. And then you worry, and then you're like, well, do I take vacation? And this year, I'm just not going to worry about it. I had a pretty good first half of the year, and I'm just going to enjoy it.
Cruising into second half.
Yeah, I got a big trip in the fall. I think that's kind of helping us. Big trip with my beautiful wife and business partner. No, not Lindsay. She's
I was like, I get to come? I didn't know I was allowed to go. Okay.
Yeah, we need to talk about the Two Marketeers expense account. Anyways, yeah, going on a big trip in September. So that kind of helps us kind of be like, okay, let's just be here. Let's be literally present, and got a couple of little trips, but that's it. But I'm also going to struggle a little bit with the fact that I'm going to apparently not worry about whether work's coming in. That's hard.
You say it so lightly. I'm like, I'm so busy. And then it's not busy. And I'm like, it's all over.
That's what that's the inside voice.
That's your inside voice? Okay.
Yeah.
I just let my inside voice be the outside voice, I guess.
Well, it's new to you. I mean, I've been in and out of freelance for far longer than I'd ever want to admit. And usually not by choice. So I like to tell people right away that this fact that I have my own businesses and do that sort of stuff has never been a sort of, oh, I've always been a self-starter and blah, 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 as it's happened out of necessity. Right. There's no shame in that. It shows what would you say? It's resilience. But now, as I do begin to age, I know you can't believe it, but I'm in my 50s. Yeah.
Don't even start.
I know. Shocker, right?
I'm shocked.
Yeah. What's going to change? And the bullshit is going to change, and the bullshit of me worrying, because If I make it a thing, it's a thing. If I don't make it a thing, it's not a thing.
I think that could be our best piece of advice from this episode and season.
Perfect. Mark it down.
Don't make it a thing. It's not a thing.
What's your take, Lindsay?
On taking a break?
Yeah, it seems like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. How long has it been? You're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try this, Sean. Yeah, let's do this. I'm going to try this little thing.
Yeah.
And gosh, I hope I can scrape up enough work. And she's honestly been a blur ever since.
You encouraged the blur. So yeah, it'll be 3 years at the end of this summer, 3 years in September. And so I think although it's been, pandemic, it's been enough to see the cycle for a few years. And although I had a year when it wasn't pandemic and now coming into a little bit of some normal business practices, the cycle is always the same. Starts to slow down a little bit now, but still busy through July. It's August for me when August just slows down. So I have a bunch of vacation planned in August that I promised my family I will not work through. And yeah, so I've had that feeling this week too, where things are just kind of slowing down a little bit. And then I'm like, yeah, Chicken Little. I'm like, the sky is falling. It's over. And then 2 seconds later, you get a phone call and you're busier than you can handle. So it's been very good.
It's exciting when that happens, but then how long does it have to keep happening where you're like, every year it should be a little less scary, shouldn't it? It's not.
It is now.
It is now. Good for you.
It is now a little less scary. Yeah. But it's also, so full transparency, this is the second time we've recorded this episode. And the last time we recorded it, we spoke about like the value of taking a break and actually disconnecting, which is what spurred us to re-record this again.
Because it sucked.
I think for me, it's not disconnecting. It's just taking some moments to have different experiences and think differently and let the fog kind of clear. And I always come back so much stronger. So I'm really excited about that. I love those moments.
So you're good at that. You're good at that then.
Yeah, I think I don't
like
know.
Managing. I don't mean like, oh, you're good at just fucking off.
No, I was always under so much pressure when vacationing to relax.
Yeah.
And for me, that's not it. Like, it's not.
Have fun, everybody. You're not doing what I told you to do. We're supposed to be relaxing.
Have fun, relax, make sure you're napping, like read a book. And then you'd come back from vacation and you didn't do that. Cause I just don't do that. Like we're not beach vacation people. We don't lay at the beach for 7 days. Like we're just not like that. And for me, it's more new experiences, seeing new people, going to new restaurants, going out, like having those things that change the way that I think versus making sure I read a book on the beach. So it's just kind of reframing what a break means to me, I suppose.
I hope you're not judging people who go to the beach for 7 days because you're looking at one.
I'm envious of it.
I am good at that.
I have done it a few times and it's been very fun.
It's just not for you.
Well, for me, when I'm like at the beach, then I'm like, let's have drinks, let's run around, let's go out. Well, like, I don't know. I just don't sit down well. I've learned.
Everything is Vegas to you, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. So as we are taking a second attempt at this, you're going to talk about something that was very timely early this month. It's something that happened in Ontario. It's this legislation that's called the right to disconnect.
As of June 2022.
June 2nd, 2022. So Lindsay, have you heard about it? Yes, you have, obviously.
I have heard about it. Yes.
And what did you hear?
I heard, what I took away from it was now that people have like a legal platform to stand on to enable them to disconnect from their work and have there be kind of ramifications if their employers or their companies aren't kind of respecting those boundaries.
Right.
And that it was something they did in Europe first, was that I had kind of heard about it there.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
And was surprised that it's here. So that's all that I really knew.
So on Wikipedia, they say the right to disconnect in Ontario specifically is a proposed human right regarding the ability of people to disconnect from work and primarily not engage in work-related electronic communications such as emails or messages during non-work hours.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward. Lots of questions.
Someone messages you, you do not have to answer legally.
No, it doesn't apply to you because, I mean, hey, Lindsay, it does apply to you because you make the rules when it comes to who talks to Lindsay when. Some of the rules are it's for companies of 25 employees or more, stuff like that. So it's really for, I would say, a very traditional working model.
Okay.
Now, from an origins, so when you talk about, where did this come from? It emerged in France in a decision in the Labor Chamber of French Supreme Court. So labor is a key word. The decision on October 2nd, 2001 held that the employee is under no obligation either to accept working at home or to bring there his files.
Does it say his?
Bring there his files and working tools.
So someone can be like, you have to work from home tonight because we need this. And you can be like, no, and I will not bring my working tools home.
Yeah. And in 2001, so when they say his files, it's because men were the ones working in 2001. And they were working with file folders and clubs, right?
Women weren't allowed to have files. No files for us unless it's a nail file while I'm making dinner.
Oh, how we've evolved. In 2004, the Supreme Court affirmed this decision and ruled that the fact that the employee was not reachable on his cell phone outside working hours cannot be considered as misconduct.
Interesting.
So I just thought we'd enjoy that little snippet, but that's the history you asked. But to answer the question, so why now and why does it exist? The modern working environment has been drastically changed by new communication information technologies. Okay, it's just technologies. This was well in play. And you and I have talked about this. I think it was one of our first podcasts where we talked about that whole always on and how our brains are always on. Therefore, we have a real problem focusing. And we've talked a lot about all this stuff. The boundary between, and this is hence the technology was the issue. Therefore, the boundary between work life and home life has shrunk with the introduction of digital tools into employment.
Makes sense.
Okay, so I actually really like that statement because they talk about work life and home life. Don't get me started that work-life balance is a thing. Work-life, home life, or work-life, non-work life, but work and life are not parallels.
Right.
Anyways, while digital tools bring flexibility and freedom to employees, they also can create an absence of limits, leading to excessive interference in the private lives of employees.
That's an interesting way to say it, excessive interference. Yeah.
Does it? Well, children do that too.
Is there a bigger word than excessive?
I think it's perfect, right? Excess. But we tend to love things in excess, don't we, as human beings? Okay, so let's be honest. Right now, we're going through the biggest, what do they call it? The Great
Resignation.
The Great Resignation. And people quitting to not go to other jobs and all that stuff. So there's lots going on right now. So now all the buzz around it is it good or bad, right? What does this mean for Ontario? What, so it's actually quite a little thing right now. I mean, hey, it's a great step, sure. But what is it fixing?
Yeah. I feel like there's so many conflicting messages about work right now. Like, for instance, I heard the other day that one of the airlines, it's June 2022. So as you may see all over the news here, but even other places, Toronto's airports and airlines are a wreck right now, like a wreck, disaster, like wait times, canceled flights, like all of it just being completely mismanaged. And I heard that employees of a certain airline were being rewarded and given extra compensation if they didn't take any days off. So, which is kind of like the opposite, where they're saying, we know we're a wreck, we need you to work, and we will give you extra money above and beyond and recognition and things like that if you refuse to not work. And I'm like, wow, that's such just it's hard because people need money. It's a hard time for a lot of people right now. And that sacrifice of your work and your life and being able to take a break is obviously going to be massive on people who choose to do that. And then when you look at something like this legislation, for me, like working in the advertising industry as an example, where people pride themselves on working very long hours and it's exciting and it's fun and you want to do it. And when you're young, you're like so in it and you just really want to be doing it. And you're working at midnight and 6 a.m. and all weekends.
Look at me. It's the hustle, right?
Yeah. It's the hustle. Yeah. I'm like living this glamorous, like advertising, like hustle life and flying here and doing that and this and that.
Yep.
And it's just, I can't ever imagine anyone in a scenario like that, as an example, saying, I am going to enact this legislation, which means you can't email me at midnight and I will not respond. And if someone was just not responding and in that type of environment, I can't imagine that it wouldn't negatively affect their career anyway. If they started to be like, you can't contact me, I can't imagine that they would flow on unscathed out of that scenario. Like somehow there's going to be an impact, so it really starts with that company's culture saying, we're not going to do this, not one little employee being like, you can't contact me. It's like, well, this is the gig,
It's just exactly. And it's pretty straightforward and basic on paper. But you and I being strategists, and I think what I bring to like the creative strategist side is around, so how do I apply this in a way that I can create a narrative or a story where it plays out, right? How does it play out? It's going to be more noise as they, go through their career and they advance and they're like you say, type A. And they want to manage, right? They want to move up. And I now want to move to this because now with this crazy ladder that has come back where they'd said, careers are a chessboard, they're back to being a ladder in a lot of cases where you're given a time frame, you're given a list of things you need to complete, you're given a level that you will go to next, and you are given a standard compensation upon achieving that level. And what happens is, when you create a standard like that, I know for a fact I've had recent conversations where it's like, you're not individual at all. In fact, what they do is they pick shit that kind of says, okay, so instead of being about, here's all the great stuff you're doing, it's about, oh, good, I found 2 things you don't do well. And you have to focus on those 2 things. Think about it. Think about it. Think about your children, think of anyone you guide. Is that really the most proactive, productive, especially when it comes to a career? Focus on the things you suck at, and then you'll move on to the next level.
Well, don't even get me started about how that's so ingrained in the school system.
Okay, I won't.
It's a mentality from the minute you're born and put into school and things like that. So that's why I think people so naturally fall into this structure, is that if anything,
totally.
Also, I feel like we've realized over the last couple of years, we really like structure. We really like patterns and things that will repeat. I know what to expect from my day. I get up, I go to the office, I pick up my kids, I come home, we make dinner. Whether that's a good thing to be doing or not, there's comfort in that behavior and routine.
And there should be comfort in that. It helps you operate from day to day, right? To manage a very complicated life.
And so people like to know what to expect next. You tell me what to expect next so that you can guide my career, so that I know that I'm going to be successful coming out of it. It's just a whole mentality around how a lot of organizations operate.
Right. I think, yes, absolutely, Lindsay. But I think that it will bring up a topic around giving people something more to blame. Right? Like, it's wrong that I have to work all the time. It's unfair. We are just the victims of this crazy thing. And when we talk about we want freedoms, when we get those freedoms, and I say this because, hey, I still do that, right? So it allowed me to be objective. So when we say we want these freedoms, and then when we get these freedoms, we identify them as burdens and look for other freedoms we want. We're always getting what we want. And the worst thing for a lot of us is getting exactly what we asked for.
Well, I think that's a lot of what's going on with the Great Resignation that we've been talking about. We've talked about this before. I know so many people in the ad industry specifically, and also other industries, who have been like, I can't do this. It's too much for me. I'm up and I quit. Like, I quit, I'm done. And you're like, well, where are you going? I don't know, like nowhere. I don't know, nowhere. And that's the big thing, is that I think people think they want the freedom, and they do, but they don't then take the next step to design what they want their life to be and what freedom means to them. So when we go back to talking about vacation as an example, vacation for me is not sitting down and reading a book. Vacation to me is having new experiences so that I can change the way that my brain is operating and thinking, that can open my eyes to what I do next, whether that's work or my life or playing with my kids, or where should I live next, or whatever that is. It's that people have realized that they want their lives to be different, but they haven't done the work to figure out what different means and how to make it achievable and successful for them. Like, anyone can quit their job and become a freelancer, but it's very hard to figure out, what do I want from that? What is going to make me feel like, when I'm on my own, that I'm achieving success in my own way? And how do I get there? And how do I put a plan together that when I'm having a hard time, I can look at that and say, this is what I'm trying to do, and here's what I'm walking towards.
Wow. What are you walking towards?
I have a whole thing.
I bet you do. That's how Lindsay and I are different. Yeah, I think absolutely taller stuff. I say, whenever I get all stressed, and I even recently had a very high pressure project. I loved it. But the thing is the way I managed it is, when it just gets ridiculous. It's like, okay, here's a project. It's 2 weeks. There's 4 things need to be done with 4 different clients. Great. Day 2. Okay, everything's a week late. We still have to deliver at the same time. They've doubled the number of this, and now it has to be done while you're standing on your head. I mean, it's what happens? And you say, great. It's just, that's where I say, am I saving lives here? And it's always, literally, it's almost like a mantra. Am I saving lives here? Because the only life that needs saving right now is mine, my work life. And I need to protect that. And I've often been a bad protector of that. And that's where I say, what the advice I give people is, before you lead anyone, you need to lead yourself. And there's this culture of people moving to the top who sacrifice everything to move to the top, move up so that they don't have to sacrifice anything anymore, continue to sacrifice, and expect the same level of sacrifice from everyone who works for them. Hence an entire culture that is broken, negative, competitive, resentful. It's just, hey, I was there. Like, I'm literally saying I wasn't a victim of that. As much as I think I was a pretty good manager and a pretty good VP, blah, 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 that was part of our culture. That's what you did. You said, I've worked my ass off for 20 years to get here. Really? And are you saving any lives yet?
Yeah, to get where exactly? Well, that's the thing. I suppose it's nice that for people who don't have those boundaries, to be able to say, I have another path I could go down, and I do have the opportunity to redesign my life how I want it to be. At least they have some things that they can pull on if they feel like they're in an environment that's not supportive of how they want to live their lives and not answer email after work hours.
Well, I think that's exactly, and I love that it's just called the right to disconnect. The right to disconnect.
You have the right.
It is a human right. So take it, use that right, and use it with yourself, because you're your own worst enemy. This summer, I'm going to be reminding myself that I have the right to disconnect, and that right is mine to take. It's not to be given to me. It's mine to take.
Right.
Do you mind if I talk about one quick thing? Because it's just 2 quotes and it's going to blow your mind.
Sure.
I happened upon a book called Bullshit Jobs. It came out in around 2017, and it was done by this anthropologist. His name is David Graeber. He's now at the London School of Economics. So what I love about this is, as much as it's, the levity of the term, he is an expert in economics.
Wow. Anthropologists are always the coolest.
Right?
If I had to go back, I would become an anthropologist.
Well, we've talked about that. So here's a quick description. Graeber, who's the author, seeks a diagnosis and epidemiology for what he calls the useless jobs that no one wants to talk about. He thinks these jobs are everywhere, and by all evidence, they are. I will literally tell you, when people now say, "What do you do?" Unless they're in the industry, I'll be like, "You don't need to know." I mean, I'll say I have a podcast, but it's just, you know what?
I have a bullshit job.
Talk about it. I have a bullshit job. So here's an excerpt that might force some of us on this call to look in the mirror. No one more so than me. Okay, so all these studies, it started with an essay. We'll send a link. It's fascinating stuff. It's hilariously shocking. But here's an excerpt from one of the contacts he had when doing his research. Okay, it's his quote. "I do digital consultancy for global pharmaceutical companies' marketing departments.
That sounds so familiar. Oh no.
I often work with global PR agencies on this and write reports with titles like How to Improve Engagement Among Key Digital Healthcare Stakeholders."
Oh no, you're making me nervous.
"It is pure, unadulterated bullshit and serves no purpose beyond ticking boxes for marketing departments." Wait. "I was recently able to charge around £12,000, he's from the UK, to write a 2-page report for a pharmaceutical client to present during a global strategy meeting. The report wasn't used in the end because they didn't manage to get to that agenda point."
Huh. I gotta go.
So this is why it's so great. He's not bitching and complaining. It's just that self-reflection, self-awareness going, so am I expecting someone to feel bad for me? It's that feeling of, I'm not being exploited.
Mm-hmm. But is he saying he's unhappy?
He's unhappy with his job. When you can create a scenario on that, you're not loving your job. You've kind of created this sort of reality that is, I charge a ton of money to do things that's probably start out like, wow, yeah, this is a global strategy for it, blah, 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 blah. But when he puts it in a scenario, I'm like, God, how many times have you done some work you really were passionate about and it never even left the room?
But that's the thing. I like doing it. I really like doing it. And I'm really good at it. I would say I'm really good. So so my daughters asked me the other day, "What do you do when we go to school?" They're like, "I want to stay home and do what you're doing." I was like, "I'm at my desk, tippity-tappiting all day. I'm in meetings. I'm talking to people. I'm writing strategy documents. I'm doing research." And they're like, "Oh." I was like, "I'm in my office the whole time you're not there." And what I said to them was that I really like doing it. Like, I love doing the work that I'm doing. And so that doesn't make it a bad scenario. They're like, "You're in your office all day." I was like, "Yeah, and I like it. And I've designed my life to be how I want it to be in the hours I work and who I work with." So maybe bullshit jobs aren't bad.
It's not a bullshit job until you start feeling like it's not fulfilling you. So I'm not,
right.
It's not about, this is a guy who has a bullshit job. Honestly, you would think I could have written that.
Right. But that's the thing I think people need to ask themselves and take away from a conversation like this is, what does freedom mean to you? What does happiness in your job mean to you? What does fulfillment actually mean to you? Is it answering emails at midnight and flying to New York in the morning? Because that's fun. Like, that vibe can be very fun. Is that fulfilling to you? If it's not, what is? And actually do the work to figure out, if you were to quit, if you think you're in a toxic environment and you were to quit, what do you do now? And how do you design your life to achieve those goals versus just being like, "I can't do this, I got to go." and then not getting to that next level, because you can do it.
Yes. Let me rein it in. This is about understanding that there is a sort of aspect of this in the economy. If you're happy at your job, this doesn't apply.
Right.
This isn't about saying you had a bullshit. It's just
No,
saying,
I think you can be happy at a bullshit job. I don't know.
You can.
It's not to say it's not bullshit.
Anyways, it's more of just, I really like this discussion, and you have to know that there are bullshit jobs out there. There are bullshit jobs when it comes to how many people are on a call, how many account people are on a call. The idea is that about 30 to 40% of jobs are like management jobs, they'll say, are literally jobs that make little to no impact. And he uses case studies that talks about, your company needs to grow, it's funded and it grows, yet it never gets more productive. It just gets more and more unproductive, no matter how much more work or funding it gets. And it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I just really love the idea. And here, I asked the question, is it productive? Because here's what they say in the article. Left to their own devices, Graeber points out people tend to do work like students at exam time, alternately cramming and slacking. Possibly they work this way because it is the most productive way to work.
Mm-hmm.
Through the better part of human history, jobs from warrior to fisher person to novelist had a cram and slack rhythm, in part because these jobs were shaped by actual productive needs. Right? Fish are in.
Yeah.
There's a war. Right?
I would say I have a cram and slack rhythm. So I'm loving to hear this.
And you are now in an environment that
Except I don't like that it's called slack. So we're going to revisit that part at some point.
No, we're not. So it just says these jobs were shaped by actual productive needs, not arbitrary working clocks and managerial oversight.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Right? Is it possible? Is it possible, Lindsay, that bullshit jobs are useful? In Graeber's view, we have invented a bizarre sadomasochistic dialect whereby we feel that pain in the workplace is the only possible justification for our furtive consumer pleasures.
Come
on.
I know.
Isn't
I wish we could talk about this all day, but we need to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'll stop there.
Just stop there. Share the book with us. It's summer reading. We're taking a break.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. We will see you for season 3, starting in the fall 2022, and we are looking forward to it.
Bye, everybody. Happy summer.
Have a great summer.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed it.
New episodes launch every 2 weeks, so be sure to subscribe to the Two Marketeers podcast wherever you like to listen.
Or go to the twomarketeers.ca and connect with us.
That's the twomarketeers.ca. Spell it out.
We are everywhere.
The Two Marketeers podcast.
This podcast is over.